previous relationships, I realized I was needy of my partner. I needed them to be there for me. Now I realize that I have to be needy of myself and be okay with myself, even if the relationship doesn't work out, doesn't pan out. I'm going to be okay.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 249. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have an interview with Pan, who lives in Germany and is solo poly. We cover a wide range of topics today, and it's really an amazing conversation.
Yeah, this is a super fun conversation, and we're grateful to Pan for reaching out. Actually, he was one of the few people to have ever sent us a voicemail.
Yes.
So, hint, hint, you can always send us a voicemail, but you might wind up on the show, so be careful with that. To send us a voicemail while we're talking about that, head over to our website and click on the Contact Us tab. You'll see a link there. It's pretty easy to figure out.
Yes.
So anyway, back to Pan. Super awesome conversation. We talk about so many different things, but this conversation is very consent focused and talking about codependencies and moving away from that and feeling confident in yourself. And it's just a really great conversation. So thank you, Pan, for coming on and sharing. We appreciate it.
Before we jump into the interview,
we have one more thing that we have to say.
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
So this one, we're just trying to avoid a lawsuit. Vis-a-vis the McDonald's, somebody spills hot coffee on their lap and sues McDonald's. We don't want any of that. So there's a point pretty early on in this conversation where Pan is talking about, let's call it a technique for pleasing people, and it involves drinking hot liquid. Our safety disclaimer is start with warm liquid and work your way up until you find your limit. You don't need to boil the water, pour it in your mouth, and then do the thing with it because you're going to have a bad day. That's all.
That's true.
That's my only disclaimer. I just don't want to get sued.
That's true.
All right. Carry on, Emma.
We don't want to get sued.
That's good to know. We are on the same page about not getting sued. So thank you for the tip technique, Pan, and you're welcome for the safety disclaimer.
Before we jump into the interview,
for real this time,
we do have a few announcements. If you're out there looking for like-minded people, we'd really encourage you to check out our Patreon community. A huge thank you to everyone out there that is already a Patreon member. It is growing daily these days, which is pretty amazing. And we'd love to have you join us and check it out. We have monthly Q&As. We have men's and women's group calls. We have an ongoing MeWe chat. So to check it out, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the Patreon button.
Yeah, actually, as Emma said, we've been growing lately. The last couple of weeks have been huge growth for us.
Yeah.
I'm not super excited. So I just want to say you really want to be one of the people who says, I was one of the first 250 people to ever be part of the 1 million person normalizing non-monogamy community. I was one of the first 250 or 300.
Right.
So you definitely want to do that. Speaking of Patreon, some fellow podcasters have an awesome Patreon community as well.
Yes, that's true. And we were on their show last week.
So that is the Multi-Amory Show. A huge shout out to them. We were on episode 384. We were answering Q&As from their patrons. It was a super fun conversation, and we're grateful that they brought us on to do that. Check out their show, all of their work. They have amazing content. It's a little bit different than ours, but it is amazing, and we're super excited about that. And they have a huge Patreon community as well, and we know some people who are in there who find it super supportive. So check that out as well.
Links are in the show notes. Also, coming up on August 30th, that's only in a couple weeks, we have our next virtual meet and greet. And these meet and greets are open to anyone that wants to join. You just must be respectful and open-minded. These meet and greets, we bring everyone into Zoom. We ask do some fun breakout questions or icebreaker questions. That's what I was trying to say. Icebreaker questions. And then we send you into small breakout rooms with a question, and you get to chat with those people in the breakout room around that question. And then we bring you back to the main room, shuffle the rooms, and do it all over again. So it's a super fun It sounds really confusing when I try to explain it, but it's not confusing. It's a super fun time. It allows you to meet and mingle with a lot of different people. And our next virtual one is August 30th. To sign up, go to our website and click on the community events tab.
And there's already a handful of people signed up, actually quite a few.
Yes.
So we're super pumped about that. And thank you to everybody who's already signed up. The other thing we needed to say thank you about, well, also promote our shirts. So thank you to anybody who bought a shirt. You should all probably have your shirts by now. And you know what? If you want to take a photo of you in your shirt and email it to us, we would love that.
It makes us smile.
We'll keep it to ourselves. We don't need to share it unless you want us to share it. We're happy to share it. But we would love to get those. And if you don't have a shirt and you're like, what the hell? I want a shirt. Well, you can still get a shirt. So shirts are available. If you go into your podcast player show notes, there's a link there or on our website in the show notes for this episode or right on our homepage, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. There's a big button there where you can go and buy your shirt, and they are amazing. We love them. They just say, give love with our logo, and that's it. Mm-hmm. It's a good way to spot other normalizing non-monogamers out in the wild. Mm-hmm. I made that name up. We probably need to refine that.
Probably need to refine that a little bit.
Throwing out to the community, what should we call people who listen to this show?
NNMers? That's too much. That's too bland.
Normalizers? That's a little weird.
Oh, any ideas?
Listeners, what are you?
Okay. A quick reminder. Our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. While you're there, contact us, reach out to us, send us an email, send us a voicemail. We'd love to hear from you, and we respond to everyone.
And we have a super fun, big, exciting announcement coming Friday.
Yes.
We're just giving you a little heads up that's coming Friday.
Look out for Friday.
Keep your ears peeled, and we'll see you on the other side of this awesome interview with Pam.
Let's go.
Welcome to the show, Pam. We're excited to have you here. Thanks for reaching out. One of the few people who've ever sent us a voicemail. So this is the dangers of sending us a voicemail as you wind up on the show. So thank you for being here.
I'm very happy to be in your show. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, do you mind introducing yourself? We know very little about you, but we're excited to learn more. And I think presumably most of the listeners know nothing about you. So, yeah.
So I am at the end of my 30s. I grew up in Greece and I live in Germany. I work in IT. I see myself as a single polyamorous person. I'm maybe sapiosexual or heteroflexible. I don't know what exactly. And that's pretty much everything which comes to mind right now.
Yeah. Well, and how did solo polyamory sort of, or non-monogamy, like work its way into your life for the first time? And actually, maybe before we do that, like, could you maybe give a high level of like what your current relationship, like, constellation looks like today?
Yeah, let's start there.
Yes, why not? So I met Annabelle a few months ago. She's married and has a very lovely husband, and they've been married for 22 years, have 2 gorgeous daughters, and there is nothing going on sexually wise in their relationship. And they opened up the marriage 7 years ago, and I met her like 4 months ago, and we hit it off amazingly at kinky parties, and then meeting each other in private and having an amazing connection. So that's like one of the relationships I cherish very much in my life. And I have a few people, like, for instance, Sunny, 30-year-old girl I met a few weeks ago, just dancing in a club on totally random, without any apps, any Field or Bumble or whatever that else is out there. And the beauty with Sunny is we connected on a BDSM level without realizing we were both into it. I knew I was into it. I didn't know if she was as well. But that developed beautifully. And I met Nebula, a girl which lives far away from me, like an hour's flight away. And we met on Field, and the common denominator was BDSM relationship and power exchange. And I really flourish when I am given the honor to lead somebody or guide them or get them to the next level of their sexuality or their needs being met. And I just met, like, 3 weeks ago, a girl called Lily. We're exactly the same dominant, submissive sexual tension, built up, and we're seeing each other multiple times, and it's always an amazing blast. These are like the people which are close to me on a emotional and sexual level. And there is Bonnie and Clyde. These are pseudonyms. I asked them if I can mention them too. And they are married now 4 years, and are both swingers. I met them at the party, and they're just amazing people. And they're like the role model for me of what a healthy relationship could look like in a setup of non-monogamy. And is it okay if I say like a kinky story which happened between the three of us?
Yeah. Of course.
So I was invited to their place. We went for dinner. We had a good time. We connected as people and ended up at the end of the night playing together in bed. And Clyde asked me to come on his wife's chest. And as I did so, he exploded over her as well. And then he told me, okay, we're going for dinner. I have a shower. And only the men went for a shower. And then I just realized when we were in the restaurant that Bonnie was playing with her negligee and putting her finger in it and then licking it. And it was such an amazing moment for me because I could see this husband being married to this person for such a long time, being on fire for his wife over again. And that just made me think, holy crap, if I could have this, that would be so awesome. And fun fact, Clyde taught me Olivier's trick, which I'm teaching to all my male friends, which is if you're together with a lady and things are getting hot, and before a man goes down on his partner, if you take a sitheringly hot sip of tea or hot water and keep it in your mouth just before the moment you kiss a lady or give her cunnilingus, she will explode. And I don't know why, but I really felt I had to put this out there. Because I have had so much positive feedback on that with my sexual partners. And I'm getting sidetracked. That was about it.
I was going to say, did it work?
Oh,
it sounds like it worked.
Explosively so. Yes.
You know, what's interesting, I wonder, because that's a temperature thing, right? I wonder if it would also work if it was like how it would work if it was really cold. Like if you put an ice cube in your mouth.
It works as well. But it's another sensation which is more shocking. But the heat makes more blood flow into the sensitive areas, and it's amazing for men and women. So Olivier's trick is something I can't stop talking about.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I love that we kind of just dove right there.
Right.
how we just looked at each other like when I said that.
No worries.
No, it's amazing.
Well,
we mark our podcast as explicit. We can talk about whatever we want.
Excellent. Yes.
Well, so I mean, thank you for giving us the overview, and also for kind of throwing in there that you've talked to all of your partners about talking about them and gotten consent on that. That's amazing.
Yes.
And we appreciate that. So can we go back in time, however far we need to go, to like, how did you get to the point where you have this sort of awesome constellation of like casual, but also meaningful partners that sort of circle around and come in and out of your life?
So I was married for 10 years, got divorced because I realized that I basically got married at like 25-ish. And looking back at it through my psychotherapist, I realized that I just exchanged one mother for the other. And that I was unhappy because I was projecting all my needs onto one person, which she couldn't meet. And talking to her about trust and opening up the marriage and doing things with other people was a total no-go for her, but always something on my mind. So I was diving into the literature, trying to understand, why am I wired that way? Why do all the other people I know, go behind their partner's back and have affairs, have one-night stands, get drunk on stag parties and do stuff? And a few books got me to the realization, such as the Sex at Dawn and the Ethical Slut, to realizing that it's okay to want more. It's ethical if you talk to all the parties involved. So all the people I mentioned before know of each other. Some want to know details. Some just want to know, what's the basic premise? Where do I stand? And it was a long journey for me. Like now, I think it took me at least 15 years after turning 18, because I was a late bloomer. I started having girlfriends like at the age of 18 and nothing before that. And I don't know why, but it took me a long time to realize that I really enjoy the game. I enjoy people in a sexual setting. And what I realized in the past few months is when you meet somebody who's a swinger as well, or is non-monogamous, and they know that about you and you about them, the discussions and the talks you have dive deeper on a more meaningful level than with any small talk you can have in a club, cafe, or bar, or other setting. And that's, for me, like the biggest reward of finding people who are open-minded as me and being able to talk to them about enmeshment, about unhealthy relationship, about codependency, about many things which I'm working on.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. And even, and this is something we've experienced as well, even if it never goes to a level of physical connection or sexual connection, just being able to sit around and have those conversations is something that is much more, easily accessible when you're talking to somebody who is either non-monogamous or has experienced it, or at least open to the idea. You can go to that level, and it's not obviously impossible with people who aren't, but we've found that like our friends who are, really open to this, like, yeah, we can have conversations. We're not afraid to like say things, and we're not hiding things.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Especially with Bonnie and Clyde, it was like a mind-opening thing that they, from the get-go, talked about their needs and wanting to be in a swinger lifestyle. And I had Clyde over, and he was just saying one of the most cherished experiences he had was with his wife in a glory hole, where the moment she was taking another man in her mouth, he just came all over her, which was a base experience for her, saying, oh my God, if I can do this and I can make him so aroused with me, why can't we do more? And so having somebody to talk about such intimate things over a glass of wine on my balcony is just something I never had before, and I don't want to miss anymore.
Yeah.
Back, you said you were a late bloomer. It took you a long time to kind of discover this. Do you remember the start of that process? Like, because you got married and were in that relationship, and it took you a while to realize, hey, I'm not happy in this relationship. It's not serving me anymore. But along that journey, do you remember when that started, that piece of self-discovery that wasn't what you wanted?
I realized, I think in the horrible seventh year of marriage, that I'm not satisfied in the constellation I'm in. And then the process of separation happened. We were over 2 years in couples therapy, trying to make it work, trying to find a way. And I fell in love with a coworker, which was married. And she was unhappy in her marriage as well. And so although I was being separated but not divorced yet, I started an affair with her. And because I was traveling a lot, I couldn't be there all the time for her needs or being there physically. And we chatted a lot. And, she was like, my husband doesn't take care of me on so many levels. I need to have a date. I need to feel like a woman and so on. So I actually arranged for a friend of mine to meet her and have a date and then end up in bed, because I felt only compassion and love for both of them, and was like, hey, rather than her meet somebody at work, which might affect her work and her marriage negatively, I would rather have somebody I know and trust her and have a good time with her than if I cannot be there. So having an affair with a married woman and realizing that I cannot be there constantly made me realize that, hey, it's okay. I don't have to be there. I can have somebody else take care of her physical needs and her still being in love with me and me with her. that was my journey into non-monogamy, which got me started and thinking and reading books about explaining to myself, why am I like this?
Right.
Yeah.
Like why does it feel like why am I not satisfied? Why doesn't one person, not that one person should fulfill all your needs at all. Like that's not, but many people can be happy in monogamous relationships, but they can get needs met from other people, other friends, other family, like that type of thing. Yeah. What were some of, I know before we started talking, you listed a bunch of books that you've read, and like, do you remember those early days of like, what were some of the things that you gravitated towards that really helped you?
So growing up in Greece and then living in Germany and seeing everybody else struggle with the same problem of saying, hey, you have to be married, you have to have one co-living partner, you have to, bind resources, you have to raise children together. And I was seeing in my circle all the people being married in close relationships being very unhappy. Some of them compensating with sports, some of them with alcohol, some of them with going behind their partner's backs, getting their sexual needs met. And I was trying to explain to myself why. And maybe it's confirmation bias, but the book Sex at Dawn helped me realize that maybe, all the views we have from Christianity and religion, having only two people being in a marriage, is something which worked a long time when you were trying to save resources and survive. But back in the day, if you were a tribe, you didn't know if that child was yours, but you would raise it together with the others. And that's how I feel now, that this gives me the mental model to say, hey, it's okay if I'm not the one and only for my partner, because I don't expect her to be my one and only. So that was the first step into non-monogamy, like Sex at Dawn, then The Ethical Slut. Then I'm looking at my bookcase right now. More Than Two and Polysecure were very good reads, and many more.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and thanks for the vulnerability around the infidelity and having an affair at towards the end of your marriage. And I think, that's a thing we've had on the show quite a few times, is people, maybe it's triggered by, a death or a tragedy in the family or something like that. And it sounds like in your case, it was just this sort of growing feeling that you needed something different. And and it sounds like it was a very cultural, in Greece and Germany, it's as you kind of told us again before we started recording, that culturally, it's more accepted to cheat than to open your relationship. And I think that's very true.
It's unfortunately so. I have a very good friend of mine whose wife told him honestly that she doesn't want to cheat, but she would like to open the marriage because she fell in love with a coworker. And she told him before anything happened, and he was devastated. He moved out, and his wife then was bullied by her own brothers, not being able to see their wives anymore, not to get them on wrong ideas. And many other friends of the family were telling her in secret, why couldn't you just have cheated like the rest of us? It's a thing, it's new relationship energy or something, it's just a phase, it will go on. Why do you have to open up your marriage or make him move out and so on? Don't you think about your children and all that? And in the end, my friend turned to me a few months later and said, I respect that person much more, because instead of being dishonest towards me, she took the hardest step of telling me what she needs, although it hurt me. But right now I can trust her even more than before, which I believe is just a wonderful thing to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get that. And it sucks that it's sort of shamed out of us. And it's interesting because if you cheat, that's not a good thing either, obviously, but it's crazy that it's
accepted.
It's the preferred strategy to accomplish the idea of, getting needs met somewhere else is to do it in secret and to hide. It's unfortunate.
So talking about needs, you were asking before about my marriage. I realized because my mother enmeshed with me rather than having a healthy partnership with my father, she would make me her man in her life. And I had to convince her to move out of the house with my father because they were fighting constantly and it was becoming violent. And I became the person she would look up to at an early age, like 14, 15, to get things done. And she would never clean the house. She had messy tendencies. She was very artistic, very creative, but she would never cook and she wouldn't keep a household. And I fell in love with a woman which I was with for over 10 years, which in retrospect I realized she was basically a surrogate mother because she was able to keep a house clean, cook a good dinner, and show love and affection through the love language of giving gifts, such as making dinner or showing appreciation through keeping the house clean and so on. Now, the book I wanted to drop, The 5 Love Languages, excellent book.
Mm-hmm.
If I read it like a month ago and I was like, fuck, that was the way she was trying to show me love, and I just didn't realize it. That was her love language towards me, and I didn't realize what I could have done to her, what her love language is. So yeah, I lost my train of thought. I just was saying about my ex-wife and how we got each other's needs met, but then growing up myself, going to psychotherapy, realizing that what happened to me was actually enmeshment and unhealthy, and then realizing for myself that I need to build up my own apartment, my own place, my own safe space to then be able to give love after I've loved myself first. And that sounded like a whole lot of bullshit, that love yourself first, right? For the bigger part of my life. Like just in the past 5 years, I realized that if I'm okay with myself, I can project that love or that well-being to others, and then I can have healthier relationship with others, which I didn't have in my marriage. There, I was depending on that person to have a nice environment. And I didn't realize I was doing it because everybody does it. In Greece, you see single men living with their parents at the age of 50 or 40 until they get married and then move in to their wife's place, which most likely is an apartment below the parents' apartment in the same complex building. Which is unhealthy as fuck from my perspective. But it's what it is, and people are happy with it, and I'm just happy that I realized that I can't take that kind of a life anymore, and I'm happy the way I am right now.
Jeez. Yeah, well, I mean, that's amazing. Like, if that's the model and you have to
right.
You're like, well, no, not only am I not doing the marriage thing, I'm not going to live below my mom. I'm not going to basically it's crazy that how many social norms and expectations you had to sort of peel away from and
and still are doing
that. Right. And
yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. You can do it once, but then every time you go visit, it's like, look what you're throwing away. Look what you're not doing. Right. And so you get to rub your face in it every time you go home, every time
I go home, they're like, are you not getting married? Are you not in a single, or are you still single? Are you not getting somebody to take care of you when you go old and so on? And I see the misery those people are going through, and the only measurement of success they have for their relationship is like, look at grandma and grandpa of my family. They were together 60 years. At 70-something, grandpa shot himself. But hey, they were together for over 50 years, so that was a success, wasn't it? Is it though? So, we don't have anything other than longevity or years being in a monogamous relationship to quantify it as a success or a failure.
Yeah. Yeah. If your only metric is you were in a marriage for 50 years, I mean, don't worry about the fact you were unhappy for 40 of them. Yeah. That's not what matters. It's the fact that you did it.
Well, I think people get stuck in that mindset that they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
They're trapped and they don't have a choice, and it is what it is, and they accept what it is. That is their life. Mm-hmm. And they accept the decisions they've made and societal's pressure. And
I think there's also this element, and this is maybe me being a bit pessimistic, but I think there's this element too of hold on, I've been suffering for 35, 40, 50 years. You get to do the same thing. You don't why should you get to go and live this life that you want to live being happy when I didn't have that opportunity. And I know that's probably not how people, like, they probably don't sit around and consciously think these things. But I imagine there is this element of like, hold a minute, like that wasn't a thing for me. So why are you getting that freedom? And it's like, it was a thing for you. I'm sorry. Like that wasn't the route you chose. And so it's hard. It's super hard. So what was the very first, like, you come out of the marriage, what are the first steps you take to like making this sort of a reality for yourself?
After my marriage, I had multiple relationships of 2 to 3 years, which were all closed, but there was always the discussion about opening it up, and both my partners, one after the other, was like, okay, the base must be okay, there must be a trust, and then we can see how it goes. And the funny thing was, in the beginning of both relationships, we were going to parties, going to the Kit Kat Club in Berlin, having fun alone in a club in front of other people. But then after the relationship became more serious and I moved in, all that fell away. So I did the same mistake over and over again, at least 2 times after my marriage, of enmeshing myself with my partner, asking for my needs and not getting them met. And that was, I believe, mainly due to the fact that I didn't stand up to myself and didn't say, listen, this is what I need. Accept me the way I am or not. What I used to do was, hey, would you like to try this? No? Okay, we can do it your way. And I would put my needs on a second level and have the relationship as a relationship on the first pedestal. And which unfortunately then, after some time, you realize that your needs are not getting met, that you get depressive, that you get angry, that you get frustrated with the relationship itself. And then again, it ended up breaking up. Some more civil, some more extreme. But nevertheless, I realized that if I don't put my own needs first, then I end up being in unhappy relationships with people, which was a hard pill to swallow, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
because that's, I mean, you almost feel like that's just selfish too.
Yes, definitely. You feel selfish and you feel like you are brought up with the idea that other people have to come first. Yeah, the relationship is the nucleus which you are striving for. You have to make compromises, and that's not for me, let's say. Many people get their needs met that way. I don't. And I feel the need to have multiple people in my life which cover certain aspects. For instance, Nebula, which is a 30-year-old, beautiful individual girl. BDSM was the common denominator. We connected over on Field. And I don't know why. Most likely it comes from enmeshing with my mother and being the man of the house, taking care of people. I get validation out of having the trust of somebody put upon me to guide them or to lead them. And I have this one story where I met Nebula for the first time after talking for weeks on WhatsApp and so on, and went for a drink, and I took her to a swingers club. We didn't end up playing with other people, but we just ended up dancing, and I showed her, listen, this is my world, take it or leave it, and she stayed. And I had this amazing experience that we were talking about this play space we wanted to go. So I asked her how many spanks she wanted to have. And she said 7 out of 10. And I spanked her in front of strangers. And after I gave her aftercare and took her into my arms, I asked her how she felt. And she replied, I feel owned. And that just made me explode with positive emotions toward that person, saying, wow, that's what I want to give and that's what I want to receive if I'm giving that person something from myself. And the next day was really funny because I was trying to edge her out of her comfort zone, and she had the fear of being in public. So we went for a drink. I put her. We got into my car. I put blindfold over her ears and headphones on her ears, and blindfold over her eyes and headphones over her ears, and drove her to my apartment, an Airbnb place, where I had already set up YouTube on a TV playing club background noises. So she didn't know where she was. She was like believing she was in an open space and I was doing things to her. And you could see the excitement and the fear in her trembling and her arousal and everything. And after I was like, "You're a good girl. You've done everything I've asked of you," I took off her blindfold. She looked around, and the first thing coming out of her mouth was, "You son of a bitch!" Like she was really in that space, and she enjoyed it. But then she realized that it was actually safer than she would have expected. But she would have gone through with it, which was one of the, let's say, soft limits she was playing with, contemplating, but never actually got over. And experiencing that with somebody, feeling that trust and being able to guide them, even edge them over their comfort zone, is something I really flourish with.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I imagine there was a conversation there with her of like, I want to push this boundary. I want to go
exactly
here.
Yes.
I'd like to try to go there with you. And you're like, well, hey, let's do it in a, like, she thinks she did it, but she didn't. And she doesn't even have to like go outside of her comfort zone to actually go outside of her comfort zone. And I think that's a really cool approach. And probably, if I were to guess, gave her even more trust and confidence in you to be able to explore these things with you, knowing that like you're going to find creative ways to do it that keep her safe. Yeah.
I saw Sunny the other day, and she was reminiscing the first night we met, dancing in a club, just randomly hooking up. And by the end of the night, I kissed her goodnight, and I put my hand around her neck and squeezed it lightly, and I asked her if that's okay with her. And she was telling me that once you did that, showing dominance, but reaching out with consent towards me, my knees got weak. I was like, yes, I want this. And the person is not being dominant in a bad way, let's say, or in a non-consensual way, but in a consensual approach to, hey, this is what I want to give you. Do you want it? And what I'm getting at is it's abuse if you do anything to anybody without asking them if they like it. And it's so annoying. I am getting in touch with other men, and they believe it's like macho if they do things to their people who are submissive to them without asking them or without getting their consent. And I'm like, dude, that's just abuse being disguised as being a wannabe dominant partner. And I can't stress it enough. Many dominant believe, oh, I'm going to lose my face or my power if I ask her if she likes it. And that's totally not true. The other book I wanted to mention was The Art of Dominance, which explains so well how a dominant person is just a servant of the submissive, because she actually holds the power by allowing the dominant partner to do things to her.
Right.
And in one of the books, I don't know why, I always enjoy denying my partner an orgasm in the beginning. And I always loved that play, but I didn't realize why I liked it so much. And in one of the books, they try to explain the psychology behind it. So when two partners have sex, there's always the elephant in the room. Are you going to come to an orgasm? And especially women have this feeling, oh my God, I have to show him that I'm having a good time as well. But by denying proactively the other person of having that, you remove the pressure out of it. Which for me was like, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. That's why it feels so good. And that's just one thing of my sexuality, which I had to read lots of books to find why am I so getting off on this. And it's, something magical I've discovered quite recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did the exploration into kink and BDSM, when did that sort of come in? Because I know there's a lot of, there can be a lot of crossover between non-monogamy and kink, but they're not necessarily
one and the same.
Yeah, they're not. No. You know, you can meet a lot of kinky people who are like, no, we're monogamous. You know, it's not necessarily a requirement to be non-monogamous if you're kinky.
So during the years where I was unhappy with my marriage, I was diving into porn a lot to get my needs met. And sometimes I would finish and I was like, what the fuck did I just get off to? So back then, Tumblr was still a thing, and this kind of erotica and BDSM stuff was really up my alley. And with that affair I had, we were mainly communicating through each one having a secret Tumblr blog and posting things we would like the other one to do. And then getting more and more into those kinks, like being called daddy or being a dominant or being a switch or whatever that may be, came to life in my imagination by getting inspired by other people creating their own content. So I tried, getting off to ethical porn, like Make Love Not Porn or other female porn producers. But for me, it doesn't do it. So, and I'm terribly sorry that Tumblr did what it did and it's not the platform it used to be. Because that kind of erotica is what really was something I enjoyed. So back to your question, I think being in a affair, communicating through a medium like Tumblr, seeing what other people are doing to each other, and really getting the other person's opinion about what she likes, and looking yourself what other people are doing, got me into the kink world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line, right? It takes a lot of self-awareness and education and learning about especially the dominant submissive dynamic. And it could be, I mean, either way in gender roles, but it's tricky, I think, to find that line because society, like you were talking about a minute ago, society and a lot of males, and I guess I should say people, but stereotypically males will feel like they need to, project something onto their partner. Yes. And navigating that is, I mean, it's tricky, right? Like it's tricky to try to push against those stereotypes to try to do it in a healthier way.
So the difference between being a dominant who abuses his submissive or being a dominant who gives something of value to his submissive is intent. A healthy individual which is aware of his own needs will blindfold his partner and push her over her own edge with the intent of guiding her somewhere or giving that person something. A person with the intent of feeling just, dominant for his own sake will do that to get his own needs met and not looking at the needs of their partner. So many men try to get their own needs met by just focusing on themselves, and then mostly in dominant settings it becomes abusive because they don't take into account their counterpart.
Yeah, well, and so like I appreciate that, and
thank you for sharing everything around the BDSM and that dynamic for you and your thoughts on it and consent and because it's something that's important to talk about, but we want to make sure that we're trying to navigate that conversation too, and making sure that the information we're putting out there is consent forward. And so thank you for expanding on that.
For anybody listening, the new topping book and the new bottoming book by the same authors of The Ethical Slut is an eye-opener for consensual power exchange and topping and bottoming things, which really helped me a lot.
Yeah, I love that. And I know those are perennial favorites of Dan Savage to throw out there as well. So I feel confident in those recommendations. So awesome. So I'm just kind of curious, like you kind of jumped in, you started dating, you said like some multiple long-term monogamous relationships. When you really kind of dove into this and created these sort of multiple coexisting partnerships, have you come up against any, like, I mean, you said you're kind of fighting against a whole bunch of like enmeshment and stuff from your childhood. Have you come up against any other like challenges along the way? Like maybe you were really jealous and you weren't expecting that, or maybe you're jealous with one partner and not another. Like I'm not like trying to ascribe these to you. I'm just curious, like, were there things that kind of caught you off guard and that you've had to work through as you've tried to undo 30 years of monogamous training?
Yes, definitely. So with one of my partners in the past, I fell in love with her, and I realized after we broke up that I was unhealthy because I was enmeshing with her and she wanted to be single. And from the get-go in that relationship, we said we want to be open, we want to be polyamorous and so on. And I was far away. She had a date. And by the end of the night, she texted me, "Oh my God, I'm falling in love with that person." And that was it. And she was drunk. She forgot the mobile phone in the guy's car. And there were like 17 hours and until the next day, until she found her phone again and wrote me. And during that time, I was just in free fall. I was scared as hell. I was angry. I was feeling so many emotions. I wasn't feeling jealousy in regards to why is she, going with that guy and not me. I knew why, and I wanted her to go. It actually aroused my sexual tension towards her. But the feeling of not knowing, is she now leaving me because she's falling in love with another? That was just a world of pain to me. And what I realized is that texting can be very, very painful. And if you have a phone conversation, like after 17 hours, she found her phone, she called me immediately because I was able to keep myself in check, saying, "Hey, I'm happy, having a good time. Call me when you can. I'm feeling as if I'm losing you." And we cleared the air and everything was fine in the end for that evening at least. So with Annabelle, we're in a, let's say, poly relationship with her. I don't like to write. She's a very text-based person. She likes to text all day long. I would rather have a phone call or say a speech message or something. And she's like, "So are you having a good time? Are you going out?" And I've caught myself realizing that I'm not telling her the full extent of the people I'm meeting or what sex dates or whatever other things I have, because I don't want her mind to play loops or, over exaggerate what I'm doing. So I told her, "Listen, when I'm going out with people to play or I'm seeing someone, I'm going to tell you the day after, I'm here for you. I want to be with you in the setting we have." And which is slowly becoming kitchen table poly, because I met her husband the other day. We had dinner together. We connected on IT stuff. And he even reached out to me the other day and was like, "You want to spend the three of us a weekend once somewhere?" I was like, "Why not? Let's see how it goes." So what I'm getting back to is I have a good relationship with that person, but she sometimes gets envious of the amount of dates I have and the amount of fucking around I'm doing or the fun I'm having. But she knows that when she opened up her marriage, she was doing exactly the same thing. Mm-hmm. So on the one hand side, she understands it. On the other hand, she was like, "Do you have to have like 5 sex dates in 1 week? Isn't that, am I not enough for you?" And getting her to understand that it's not about her needs or her, what she wants, but it's about my needs and my validation, which I'm pulling out of these experiences, is what I'm going through right now. I know I'm not going to be able or wanting to keep up this lifestyle forever or go on such extreme measures to have like parties every weekend. So for now, it's what I really desire and where she's sometimes struggling with. But she's mainly struggling with me not telling her upfront via text message what I'm doing. Once we meet up for coffee and I tell her everything I'm doing, she's like, "Oh my God, I want to try this as well." Or, "I want to be there and I want to see it, or I want to experience that. And I'm happy you had this experience." But again, the devil is in the chat messages. Over text message, so many nuances are getting lost and so many misunderstandings happen from my perspective.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting one because, it's sort of, in one way, right? People could say, well, you're sort of managing her feelings, but at the same time, like, you're also managing your own. And it's not like you're doing this without telling her. And you're saying, I will do this. I will tell you when we sit down, I'm going to tell you everything. But for me, this is what I need. And right, she has then the autonomy to say, that doesn't work for me. So we're not going to do this relationship anymore.
Exactly.
And so, I think there is still the room for negotiation there for the two of you to find what works. And I imagine if she was to come to you and say like, hey, I really need you to text me beforehand. And I know there's going to be a bunch of my guess is you would probably give it another try, but I don't know that if you're like, this has never worked, I don't want to keep doing this, let's try it a different way. Like she gets to opt in or opt out just as well, right?
Exactly. Both of us are able to stay involved or say, hey, it doesn't work for me. And as long as... So in the previous relationships, I realized I was needy of my partner. I needed them to be there for me. Now I realize that I have to be needy of myself and be okay with myself, even if the relationship doesn't work out or doesn't pan out. I'm going to be okay. The other book I can highly recommend, it's only a 3-hour or 4-hour audiobook. It's called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. That has some beautiful affirmations and some work you can do on yourself when you grew up enmeshed as I did, to learn to love yourself. And if you would have told me that 2 years ago, I was like, get away with that bullshit. That's like esoteric, whatever. But now I have to admit to myself, there is a lot of truth to it for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how you admit that too. Like you come up, you're like, well, I couldn't hear it back then, but I've come around and now I can hear it. And it just shows, all of us we're in different stages of our lives and different stages of growth. And sometimes we can hear something and sometimes it's not the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Love it.
One positive thing I've realized out of my enmeshment was that I've become a people pleaser. Now I realize that I stop pleasing people when I don't get the same beautiful gestures back. Like I love to open a door for a lady. I love to hold her chair and so on. And I was at a kinky party in Berlin, and upstairs were like a playroom. I sat down on a big couch, and in front of me was a beautiful couple which was making out, and I just loved watching them. So a couple came and sat next to me, and there were multiple single men looking at the happening as well. So the couple next to me started kissing, and I asked them, hey guys, I'm on my own. Do you want me to, stand up and stand over there? I see you're getting into it. Is it okay that I'm here? I'm like, dude, that's easy. Stay here. No worries. At some time, all three of us enjoying the show for the other couple and across the hall, getting it on the couch there. The guy turns to me and says, you seem like a really upset guy. Can I give you my girlfriend in your arms? Because there are many single men here. I just have to go and find my friends. I was like, sure. So I put my arm around Julia. We started talking, and she was really happy there was somebody there because it was dark, it was loud music. There was a couple having sex across from us. There were single men with their dicks out and enjoying themselves. And then another two couples come back with her boyfriend, and we all five sit on the couch, and it was getting crowded. So again, I said, like, okay, guys, I see the girls are kissing, the boys are stroking each other, like just their back of their heads and so on. And do you want me to, give you the space? I was like, no, everything's fine. And then some other random single men just started, caressing the backs and the legs of the girls because they were kissing, and they felt really uncomfortable. So the girls turned to the guys and said, listen, this is too much for us. Let's go to the hotel room. And then the guys turned to me and said, would you like to join us? We're going to the hotel room. And I ended up having a beautiful fivesome, like two couples and a single guy, for hours on end, out of just being kind to people. Like the intent was not, hey, oh wow, she's a good looking young student and can I get some? But hey, you are here together. You want the space to have fun. And this theme of being kind to people is something I cannot stress more that I'm already doing, especially to many men friends, which think they have to be assholes to attract the women or attract the people they want. I think it's exactly the opposite. If you are just kind to people, they will return it in kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love where that like went, and like just being able to be like, do you want me to leave? No, stay. Okay. Do you want me to leave? Nope, stay. How about no? Can I leave? Nope, stay. And it's like, and versus, when you walk up and try to take
force yourself.
Yeah. Like it's just, and we've watched that happen so many times at different events, and it's usually subtle, right? It's like getting closer and closer, and you watch the woman trying to like, as he moves 2 inches closer, she moves 2 inches away, and they just don't pick up on the cues. And it's all the consent, and it's crazy.
Last Saturday, I was dancing in a kinky club in Berlin, and there was this one girl dressed like a sub, and I talked to her. I was like, "Oh yeah, are you a submissive? Is your dom here?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm a submissive, but not to you." So I was like, "Okay, cool, no worries." And I danced on with my girlfriend, and this drunk dude was like talking to her, pointing upwards, and I could tell without hearing it over the loud techno music that, we want to go upstairs and have some fun and whatnot. And she would like be very kind to him, but firm, but he just wouldn't hear her. So I grabbed the guy by the shoulders, and I, told him, "Dude, she said no, but in a kind way, but she still said no. Dance on." And he's like, okay, like totally drunken state. So he danced on. And then that girl, which before was like, that dude is just hitting on me, grabbed me and just with a smile on her face said, "May I kiss you?" And I was like, "For sure." And we ended up just, kissing for a bit, and she thanking me profusely. And I telling her, "You can defend yourself." And she's like, "Of course I know I can defend myself. I'm a police officer, for fuck's sake. But I'm here in my submissive outfit. I want to have a good time. And I don't want to have to explain to myself, to drunk dudes, why I don't want to go up with them and fuck him because I don't even know his name." And that was just a very pleasant memory.
And I think it points out, like, exactly like you said, like, she knew what her power was, but like, it sucks that like the conditioning around, like, I just want to have a good time. I know I could kick this guy's ass, but I don't want to be the woman who's like kicking some dude's ass in the middle of a sex club or making it like, and so like the deference to that is, so frustrating.
It is. And I appreciate you sharing, the stories that you have shared. And a question I had was, you've talked, your life has changed a lot over the last handful of years. How open have you been in your life with that change and with your relationship structure and how you've been navigating that?
So to some close friends, I can be totally open towards all my escapades and my relationship statuses and how I navigate everything. But I realize that everything which has to do with family, because of the mindset there, is treacherous and condescending to an extreme extent. So I don't share my personal stuff at work or with my family side because they just give me grief. My friend circle where I live now is expanding more and more to people who are more open-minded and where I can talk about these things and I feel accepted. But in generally, it's in Germany, it's not normal. Let's say it's accepted to a certain extent, but it's not understood. Let's say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. And that actually gets to how society approaches non-monogamy and alternative relationship styles and structures in Germany and in Europe. And I know we touched on this like a while ago, almost an hour ago, towards the beginning of the conversation around like cheating, is the preferred or more accepted.
The simpler model to understand. Because if you cheat, you're going to stop, you're going to be back in a marriage or divorced. So the multiple versions of how a polyamorous relationship can go is so hard to grasp that it scares people. And I think it has to do with how secure are you with yourself. So people who are in a relationship tend to this is just my assumption, tend to be more secure in that setup because they don't trust themselves to survive alone. Not only physically, but even emotionally or socially, let's say. I think maybe that's even a recurring theme when I was listening to your podcast. People who are in a polyamorous relationship are more aware of themselves and more secure with themselves to say, even if everything breaks away, I'm going to be okay. Where people in monogamous relationships depend to a certain extent on the family, accepting them as being married, as their partner being there, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you see that? Have you seen that change at all over the years in society?
Definitely.
Like, do you see a progression?
Yes. You can see it in field apps. You can see it in OkCupid. You can see it in sex parties. You can see it with, especially in Europe now, you have the ability to marry same-sex partners. Open relationships in a marriage is still a long way to go. But especially younger people I meet are way ahead of me. Like, I wish I was 20-something now, with people saying, oh yeah, I met this one girl dancing, and she was like, yeah, I have 3 partners. One of them is gay, one of them is my roommate, and one of them is my lover from afar, and that's how we roll. And I was like, oh my God, you're 21. Fuck, I would have wanted to know this when I was that age. But all power to you. So back to your question. Yes, I believe now, in comparison to 10 years ago, it's more in the media, it's more in the apps, it's more in the Me Too movement, may say not, sorry, Me Too movement was the wrong hashtag, in the Love More, Be More movement of the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so sort of thinking like towards sort of putting a bow on this, you kind of said a few minutes ago when you're talking with Annabelle that she's like, well, why do you have to have this many dates and this many parties? And you kind of said like, this is where I'm at now. This is sort of what I'm needing now. Maybe, in a few years, I'm not going to have that sort of energy or stamina or desire. And I'm just curious, like, do you have sort of this vision of where you kind of see yourself going, or like what you're thinking in terms of like, in a couple of years, I think I'd like to have maybe a nested, like more serious partner, but keep these other satellite partners. Like, and again, I've just made something up. So I'm just curious, like where you see yourself taking this throughout the journey.
I had the same discussion with Lily the other day, where she grew up with parents which lived 1 hour apart all the time. They never nested together, but they were together. Like, talked every evening on the phone, spent one weekend there, one weekend there, and kept though their own personality, their own space, and were emotionally together, but physically apart and sexually open to other multiple partners. So okay. I see myself being emotionally loyal to somebody in the future, where I can connect with that person and build so much trust. And in the book Polysecure, it talks about a newborn baby needing at least 7 months to build up the trust with their caretaker, and some studies going on that at least 2 years have to pass between 2 adults for the same level of trust to be built. So I really am looking forward to finding that person where I can build that level of trust, where I might be living with them, most likely not. I really enjoy living on my own right now, although sometimes I'm still struggling with being alone or being okay with myself. Yeah. But I see myself being in like 2 or 3 loving, open relationships as a single polyamorous person, and then having somebody like really close to me on a emotional level, which I will then, if you put a hierarchy on it, will be my main partner, which I refer to for my mental well-being or my mental connection. But by saying that out loud, I'm like, holy crap, am I doing the same mistake as before, enmeshing myself with some other person, but they're not living with me? So am I doing the same mistake as before? I don't know. The answer is unclear to me right now. I still think I need a lot of healing and a lot of work to do. until I figure out how my journey will be. And this is one constant I've noticed in your podcast. It's what is the ideal? And I think there is none. I think it's an ideal for the time frame and the period and the mindset you have. So my marriage with my ex-wife was what I needed back then. And it gave me the structure to evolve, right? For that period of time, it was okay. Now I'm in this period of time where I'm open, single, polyamorous, and I love it. So in the future, maybe I'll have some other model or constellation with humans around me, but I don't think it will ever stay the same. So with Annabelle and her husband, it's slowly developing into a kitchen table polyamorous thing where me and the guy have no physical attraction to each other, but we both love to some extent the same woman and want to see her happy. So he's loving her because she gives him, after 22 years of marriage, still the nucleus of a family and raising two kids. She gives me the attention I seek and the connection I desire, and vice versa. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're going to ask a follow-up question.
Well, kind of. I just know you listen to the show a lot, Pan, and I don't want to deprive you of the opportunity to share a blooper, because we've gotten caught in that before where we don't ask and people are like, hey, where the fuck's my blooper? And so I don't.
Sometimes we ask and sometimes we don't.
Well, I know, but I feel like I think we have to at least present the opportunity. So thank you. Before that, thank you for everything you've shared and so many great conversations around consent and all of this stuff. And so I think if you're up for a blooper, if you've got one, we would love to hear it.
I went to a city far away with like 3-hour train ride to this one techno party, which had a sex positive attitude. And I'm dancing dressed in a leather skirt and a leather shirt, sleeveless top with a top hat. And out of the blue, in a club with 200 people, a beautiful black-haired, black-dressed lady walks up to me and says, I would like for my submissive to give you a blowjob. And I look behind her, and there's a beautiful blonde woman with a chain around her neck and a collar. And I was like, wow, okay, why not? And I'm thinking, are we going to go to the play area or something? And I was like, no, right here. And in front of 200 people of dancing around you to techno music, a blonde girl falls on your knees and lifts your skirt up and blows you. Suffice it to say, it was very hard to get hard and even maintain an erection just because of the anxiety of it all. But it was an amazing experience. We then ended up having some drinks, and at 3 or 4 o'clock, exactly the same thing as I mentioned before, dudes were getting drunk, we're talking to them and like being like, not understanding a no. So I stepped in again. I said, dude, she said no. Okay. And they fucked off. And at the end of the night, they were like, you are so lovely. We would love to take you home. So they do take me home to their place. And I end up sleeping with the mistress, like the leading dominant woman in bed. And the next morning, we wanted to have a threesome. And I ended up with her submissive on her bed. Because we started kissing and we ended up there. Then her mistress comes in and we start fooling around. And I just smack my head right now for mentioning it. I said, mistress, I'm sorry we played in your bed. And that somehow triggered her so badly and everything was dropped. She was like, get the fuck out. This is my bed. You're absolutely right. This is not happening. So I destroyed a perfectly amazing threesome with 2 wonderful women, which I had a good connection with by just not keeping my mouth shut. And speaking of the obvious, I don't know why she somehow became very protective or unhappy with us playing in her bed. Go figure. So that was one of the blooper I have in mind.
Wow. It's crazy because you were sort of playing along with the role that they had developed.
Yeah,
kind of.
You would think that would be like I don't want to say rewarded, but rewarded, like, hey,
or understood
or worked into the dynamic in some way. But that's wild. So I guess everybody does it their own way. But.
Well, and everybody, like, she may not have realized that was going to be a trigger for her. Like that may have just happened, and then it just happened, and you don't even recognize it.
Yes. Huh. The learning out of it is, are you okay with this? Are you feeling all right with what we're doing? Not pointing out the obvious. And I'm smacking my head against the wall right now, mentally speaking.
But it's a lesson you'll never forget.
Definitely. Yes. That will haunt me for my life.
That's amazing. Well, I was worried that all you were doing is bragging about how awesome the threesome and hot women you were hooking up with were, but you got to the blooper and loved it, so. The old explain.
I made up for it. So. Yes.
Yeah. No, good. Well,
and talking as before about who do you open up with. So I have a colleague at work, which I'm very good friends with, and we share personal stuff. And the past few months have been crazy, and I've been telling him all the stories and the things I'm doing and happening in my life. And he was like, dude, look out. The tram will fucking roll you over. There is so much imbalance of positive karma and positive thing happens in your life. There's like a boulder running your way. It cannot be that one dude having all that fun. There has to be some equilibrium. So wear your helmet when you're cycling and be careful. That's what
and be careful when you're talking to the mistress. You got to choose your words wisely. I love it. Well, yeah.
As I know your podcast, the follow-up question would be, how protective are you?
Sure. Let's do that. And then we'll let you get along and we'll get some breakfast in us. You're good.
Yeah, go.
Yes. So,
awesome.
I get tested regularly, on the big 4 STDs, which exist. Thankfully, the gay community, has certain checkpoints where you can go and get the tests for free. And I usually make a screenshot of it and share it with my partners proactively with everybody, saying, listen, this is my screening. These are all the things. And, that builds up trust, and I try to always have protected sex with the partners where I know they don't have where they have the same anal retentive feeling of fear of sexually transmitted diseases. And after my partner shows me their results as well, then we have sex without a condom. And if they then play with somebody else and something happens, and we put a condom on again until at 4 to 6 weeks pass, where 95% of all the STDs can be checked, and then we get tested again, and then we liquid bonded, they say again. So, there is some risk to it, that's for sure, but you can mitigate it by talking honestly about it, sharing your tests between each other, and usually keeping a rubber on and trying to always, fun fact, the girth of a condom is not always the same. So even the XL condoms have a girth of 52 millimeters. And I always wondered, because I'm a grower, why those condoms just didn't keep me erect. And there is this one condom size company called My Size, where they even have like a strip of paper you can pull around your erect cock, and realize that, okay, I need like a few millimeters more of width to have a good time. And dropping a drop of lube inside the condom, if it fits you correctly, can make a whole lot of difference to enjoy sex, protected sex with your partner. And that's what I do to protect myself.
Love it. Well, thank you. And actually, my one condom is like close. I wouldn't say sponsor, but they send us lots of free condoms, and we actually did
we love the custom fit condoms.
Yeah, we did a whole interview with their director of marketing a couple months ago. So it's fantastic, and I'm glad you went there and shared that with us. So thank you.
found what works for you, and it's a lot more comfortable. Yeah.
Here we were focused on the blooper, and he's worried about safer sex practices. I guess we need to realign our priorities over here. I'll switch the order when I edit it, so it doesn't look like we neglected that.
So we forgot that question.
That's all right.
Thank you for everything today, Penn. It was wonderful conversation, and we're glad you reached out. We're glad you came on, and thanks for being vulnerable with us.
Yeah.
It
Do
was
you have
an honor.
anything else? Do you have anything else to share before we let you go?
Thank you for doing the work you do. I'm really happy to be on the show. And share anything else? Right now, nothing comes to mind. No, that's all, folks. Thank you so much for being on the show. And most likely when I hear the show, I was like, fuck, I should have said this, this, and this. So, yeah.
Well, that's what part 2's for. It's all good.
So good. That's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're back. Thank you, Pan, for coming on the show and everything that you shared. We're excited to get this story out there, and we appreciate you reaching out. So thank you.
Yep, we appreciate it. Thank you, Pan. Thanks for sending us a voicemail. Reminder, you can go send us a voicemail.
Like you reminded him in the intro, not the outro too.
Well,
Why
that's
not?
what makes it a reminder. The first time was just telling him this is the reminder.
NormalizingNonMonogamy.com. Click on the Contact Us button.
And send us a voicemail. We will send you a voicemail back. How about that?
Yes.
That's incentive if I ever heard it.
Yeah, right?
All right.
While you're on our website, you can check out our Patreon and sign up for our Patreon community. You can sign up for our virtual meet and greet coming up on August 30th. You can buy a shirt that says Give Love.
You can hear us on the Multi-Amory podcast if you click on those links.
Podcast show notes. How could I forget the podcast show notes? That's like a lot of information.
I have no idea how you could forget that.
And you can go find links to get tested for STIs using our favorite resource, STDcheck.com. Right?
That is correct. You're staring at me and it's weird. So
I'm staring at you intently as I say this about STDcheck.com.
Well, tell us more about STDcheck.com, Emma, for anybody who's never heard of them.
We use STDcheck.com, and it's a efficient and discreet way to get tested for STIs. You just go to a LabCorp request, give your blood and urine sample, and you get results super fast. And by using the links on our webpage in our show notes, you can get $10 off and you support the show. So we really appreciate you doing that. And thank you also for being a sexual health advocate.
Yes, as Emma said, it is our favorite way to get tested. And thank you to everybody who does use the links. Your support for the show is absolutely huge, and we really, really, really appreciate it.
Yep. And a reminder, Friday, stay tuned for an exciting announcement
Well, it
on
could be
Friday.
awesome.
Yes. And then next week, guess what?
We have an interview, episode 250.
250. Episode 250. Excited about that. So we have an interview with Mel and AJ. So yeah, come back on Friday. Come back next week. And go check out all the links on our website.
That's all you got to do?
You can also follow us on Instagram, by the way. We've been putting out some pretty good content, I think.
Yes.
So I should say you've been mostly doing it, but I chime in once in a while.
You rocked a good post yesterday.
So we're working on it.
Yeah.
But we're NNM podcast over there.
What do they say? Like and follow, like and subscribe, like and subscribe.
Like and follow. Yeah. Like and follow. You don't subscribe on Instagram.
I know, that's a YouTube thing.
All right.
Smash that like button.
Oh,
all right.
Boy. We've gone off the rails.
All right. We will see everybody Friday for the big, awesome, huge announcement. And until then, have a great rest of your week. And then we'll see you next week for Mel and AJ.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.